Welcome into a special live edition of the Clay Edwards Show here on location at Men's Health and Women's Wellness of Mississippi. I am sitting here with Dr. Micah Walker here in the lobby of Men's Health. So if you come in at 120 Fountains Boulevard and see us, we'll be right here. You'll know you're in the right place. Not the place across the street that does similar stuff. You'll be in the correct place when you walk in and see the big Clay Edwards show set up. There will be no mistaken. Please come by and see us. We're doing free, we're doing complimentary testosterone screenings without appointment. So if you can swing by, come in, no appointment needed. And the first 10 people, well 9 now, because we've already had one fellow swing by, is going to get a free FAFO shirt. Now, all I've got is 2XL, but hey, free. Free. That's the key word there.
Maybe you can shrink them. Or actually, maybe we can help you grow into it.
Maybe so. Look, everybody don't want to shrink. I think a lot of people want to shrink in certain places and grow in others. So, hey, all joking aside, and you may not can comment on this if you can't completely understand. Have you seen the reports of Ozempic having some positive, or those type drugs having some positive effects on the men's below the waist region? It's been a big story the last week on pretty credible sources like Outkick and stuff, which I consider Outkick a credible source. You know, I use them all the time.
Somebody shared that with me.
May have been me.
It'll be interesting to see what the data shows on that. I don't really understand.
Try to get as close as you can to
if it does in fact do that, we'll have a shortage again.
Well, it was funny. It's like, so me and Sean had talked about it and just figured that it was the weight loss factor.
Yeah.
But the fella that brought this to people's attention, I guess, has been measuring this for several years through different weight loss and weight gains.
Yeah.
And is convinced that he gained an inch over the last year since doing those type of stuff. I was like, I was joking about it on the show yesterday. I was like, well, there goes the shortage again, as you just said. But well, I guess it's technically a drug, illegal, so medical drug, not drug in a bad way. This drug keeps finding new life.
Yeah, I mean,
and new demographics and audiences.
We definitely, have while the semaglutide and tirzepatide, they are definitely amazing weight loss drugs. We've definitely seen some other benefits from that, and there's some research in those areas. And I know we've seen it with our patients. We have some patients that have been able to completely, give up alcohol or have a healthier relationship with alcohol with the medication, and the way that helps in terms of the way that the medicines work on the brain and help people feel satisfied. I can see how that plays out for people. But yeah, I think you're going to see, over the next years with research and things, there'll probably be FDA indications for use of the GLP-1 agonists, the semaglutide and tirzepatide, to actually help treat addiction because of even a lot of people that deal with a weight problem, their problems actually. Their mental relationship with food, like how food, when they eat, how it makes their brain happy, and that dopamine reward center in the brain, and the semaglutide really helps people change that relationship by kind of blunting that reward, because you feel full even if you haven't eaten, you feel satisfied. And I think that translates across to a lot of people's relationship with alcohol. And there are some addictionologists and people using it off-label for that with some great success. But I'm sure the pharmaceutical industry will figure out how to monetize that and turn it into a hefty stream of income for the benefit of their stockholders.
Absolutely. So I don't mind mentioning his name because he's talked about this publicly, but our friend Sean has talked about how it helped his alcohol cravings. He wasn't doing it to not drink or anything. He was doing it for fitness and weight loss, and to, get shredded a little bit. And he noticed that it tremendously curbed his alcohol cravings. And it wasn't like he was trying to do that or anything, but he just kind of noticed, I don't have this craving to drink anymore. And he still could whenever he wanted to. It didn't have that same effect on me, but I have decided to kind of go 30-day, kind of a dry 30 days, trying to get back, restart my keto and carnivore stuff. And I have noticed that I've got a couple of beers in the fridge, and like Sunday's usually my day to kind of chill and drink some beer and stuff.
Right.
Those beers are still sitting in there pushing a week now, and I haven't touched them. Hadn't had the yearning to touch them. Got a bottle of wine over on the shelf. Haven't had a yearning to pour a glass of wine at night. I'm
Yeah.
sleeping better, obviously, with the exception of last night. I woke up kind of on and off, but I drank a ton of water yesterday, so I think it was mainly because I had to go to the restroom. But anyway, other than that, I am noticing that if you decide that you don't want to drink, the ability to do so is definitely feels like it's helped with the semaglutide.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things with semaglutide. We have to encourage people to make sure they take in adequate fluids because you feel full. So sometimes we drink things because we're not eating things and because we feel empty, right? Like in having some water or a beer or something filling, or in my case, like I'm a salty, crunchy person. I like tortilla chips and pretzels.
Me too.
And so,
if it's in the house, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah, I don't even keep like potato chips because they're like my kryptonite.
Sure.
And so like wavy Lays, if I bought a like family size, big size bag of those, I'm going to eat the whole thing.
They're not a family size; they're a Micah size.
Yeah.
I'm the same way, brother. I'm the same way.
I'll buy them like when we're going to cook burgers because the family likes them with burgers, and but otherwise I don't keep them in the house because they're just if they're in the pantry, I'll get the bag and eat it till it's gone.
I'm pretty good about if I can just not have it in the house, I won't eat it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not usually going to leave just to go satisfy a sweet tooth. I mean, I got really bad in the last 2 months on milkshakes and stuff like that. I had been doing that, and I was like, I gained like 20 pounds back.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to stop whatever I'm doing here because I see it, and then I got on the scales and I really saw it.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh. So
I think a lot of people gain weight when they have kids because they start, your kids eat half their chicken strips and you end up cruising the counter. It's like, I don't want to let it go to waste. And you end up eating calories that you otherwise wouldn't eat because your kids left something half
100%.
eaten.
I was at my girlfriend and her 12-year-old son moved in with me, and he has snacks and stuff. And I'm like, would y'all please hide those?
Yeah.
Just put them somewhere because out of sight, out of mind, I can do.
Yeah.
If I know they're here.
Those fruit gushers are the devil too. Yeah.
Any fruit roll-up type concoction, like what's got the most sugar and tastes like fruit?
Yeah.
Like, give it to me. Put it in my veins. But I had quit taking the semaglutide for about a month too. And just because I've been taking it since August,
Yeah.
I think, July. And I was like, let me just kind of hit reset.
How much did you end up losing?
I got down to 235
Where did you
from
start?
265. Now,
Okay.
3 years ago, I was 320, but I lost weight,
Right.
and then I kind of got plateaued there around 265 or 250 and got back up to 265. But when I started back in July, when you
Yeah.
reached out to me, I think I was around 265 and I got down to 235.
Yeah.
And that was as late as March 17th. I went back and looked at my app on my phone.
Yeah.
So between March 17th and let's just say 2 weeks ago, I was at 259. I'm back at 250, floating around 251, 252.
Okay.
Now,
But you put on some muscle too over
I
the
did.
past couple of years.
I did. So it obviously it's varying, but I
Yeah,
could definitely tell that the semaglutide, after taking a month off from it, and I don't know if it works like that where you're so used to it that you build a tolerance to it. I don't know if it's a tolerance type medicine, but I just felt like let me just take a 2-3 week a month off from it and restart. And I've definitely noticed maybe it's mental. So so much is placebo, right?
Yeah.
And it's like if you convince yourself that that's it, that's it.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I mean, a lot of our struggles with weight and weight loss they really are our relationship with food. It's a psychological thing. We're in the South. Everybody had grandparents, great grandparents that were Depression era, and like the most insulting thing you could do is not clean your plate at their house because when they put food in front of you, they were putting in front of you their wealth, like what they had. They may not have much, but they could feed you.
Disrespectful not
It
to
was
clean your plate.
disrespectful
I mean,
not to clean
legitimately.
your plate, and so that kind of psychology that we have with food that's ingrained in us, now, you go to Kessler Prime or Shapley's or somewhere and they put 4,000 calories in front of you and you eat it all because you've been trained to clean your plate.
But you also spending $200. You don't want to waste.
But it's
any.
also, that's kind of how, almost everybody that comes in to see us for weight loss, they don't have trouble losing weight. I know that sounds odd to say, but The problem is they keep finding it. You know, like they've lost 300 pounds over the past few years, but they found it all and maybe some more. You know, so people yo-yo back and forth. That's where these, you know, diet. I mean, calorie restriction works. I mean, weight loss is math. It's the opposite of saving money. You know, you want to operate like the federal government, and you want to run a calorie deficit. You know, that's how you lose weight. You run a calorie deficit. You burn more calories than you take in. The GLP-1 agonists like semaglutide and tirzepatide, they help you take in fewer calories because you feel full. You don't have those hunger cravings. You feel full. So but the long-term benefit of it is when you use that as a tool to kind of change your relationship with food.
That's what I've told people, it trains your brain to push your plate away sooner.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, there are people that struggle because even with meds or surgery, because we've seen it for years with bariatric surgery patients that get a lap band or some type of basically body modification of their stomach, so their stomach won't hold as much food, and they lose weight. But then because their relationship with food doesn't change, they find ways around it. You know, they eat smaller portions, but it's calorie dense, and they eat more, and they end up gaining the weight back because their stomach still shrunk. But the food is such a powerful drug for them. It gives them such a powerful, pleasure release in the dopamine center in the brain that they, even with the body modification of surgery, they continue to struggle with their weight. And they're 5 years post-op, and they're back to the weight that they were before they had their surgery. And that's why that, you know, having a medical team and actually using the medications to change your lifestyle and your relationship with food, and use the motivation that you get from those results to help you maintain those results is the most important part to losing weight in a healthy way and sustaining that weight loss. And that's what we do here. You know, if you get online, you get on Facebook or anything else, there's tons of places you can go get, you know, semaglutide or tirzepatide. I would argue that they aren't the safest places because you don't know where it comes from. A lot of the stuff you see out there are what they term research chemicals. You know, they're research peptides, and they're companies, and it says on the bottle, it's got a little disclaimer on there, not for human use. You know, where is that stuff made? Who knows?
And what's it made for if it's not for humans?
Well, they put that on there as a disclaimer so that they can sell this stuff to people and basically get around the FDA regulations. So there's really only two legitimate ways to get these medications, in my opinion, and safe ways to get them. And it's number one, it's get the brand medication from the pharmacy, which if you have insurance coverage for it, that's a great option. But about only like 47% of people's health insurance actually covers these drugs for weight loss. So there's a lot of people out there that need it that their insurance doesn't cover it. And so if you can't get the brand name medication, you know, the next best option is a reliable compounding pharmacy. You know, so we work with a compounding pharmacy out of Texas. It's one of the largest ones in the nation, and they've been in this business for a long, long time, and they provide a number of products, not just semaglutide and tirzepatide, and they manufacture things in a safe way per all the FDA regulations, and provide semaglutide for patients. And so, you know, the brand name, if you had to pay out of pocket for it, might be anywhere from $700 to $1,100 a month.
I've seen people talk about up to $1,500.
Yeah.
You know, I guess maybe during the shortage, peak times of it, but that's wild compared to what you can pay here.
It's really kind of crazy because if you can get the same medicine made in the United States that they ship to Turkey, like the country, or to Mexico, you could fill that prescription there for $170.
You know, not to get political at all.
Yeah.
But what Trump did recently, signing that act, that emergency act, or that favored nations deal to bring pharmaceuticals down,
Yeah.
To whatever the lowest If you can sell them to Turkey, for example, for X amount, you can sell them to us
Right.
for X amount.
Yeah.
And just as a consumer, and I think, I can't fathom anybody having a problem with this. Now, I've seen some people say, capitalism, blah, blah, blah. But I think that medicine should be excluded from peak capitalism. It's like you shouldn't be able to just blindly charge people whatever just because they'll pay for it when we're talking about medicine.
Well, they couldn't just do that. The market would work if you didn't have insurance in the middle of it, and that's the trouble is because
Yeah, because sometimes like the insurance companies, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but I've heard this and I've heard other people discuss it, that the insurance companies, even though they're the ones paying for a lot of these overpriced things, they're actually part of negotiating that price. And they say, well, we'll charge them this, and and then we make it up on this other stuff.
yeah.
And
Well,
it's all these other.
the insurance company's going to make their money.
Yeah.
Do you see an insurance company that's going out of business or losing money? No.
No.
Because it's mandated that you have it, and there's a mandated profit in it for them, and so it's a really complicated issue.
It's above my pay grade. I try not to speak on it too often because I don't want to be. It's not that I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to look like an idiot speaking on something I'm not that familiar with. So I don't want to outkick my coverage, so to say. But when you got a guy like yourself that's more familiar with the insurances and kind of how all that works, it's good to kind of tap into that knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll use this example. It doesn't really relate to our business or patient population specifically, but like HIV medications. I mean, HIV and AIDS really affects marginalized communities.
Jackson is the number one.
Mississippi is unfortunately leading the nation, and it's not just Jackson; it's the Delta.
It's not a cure for it still, right?
Well, I mean, people now, I mean, I grew up. I remember the '80s when it hit the scene.
It was a death
People were dropping
note.
dead, but nobody knew what it was. With the medications that we have now, people who are diagnosed early with HIV and take medications, they'll live their whole life with HIV. Something else, they'll die of diabetes or heart disease.
But they're still
something
contagious,
like
right? I mean,
they are,
somebody is.
So the trouble, so when somebody takes their medications with HIV, they pretty much their viral load goes near zero, and they almost aren't contagious. Like it's very, very unlikely that they would spread it.
Yeah.
And that's why the government does a really good job of treating people in prison and people in marginalized communities. The challenge is the government's paying for all that treatment, and the pharmaceutical industry, the drugs that we prescribe to treat HIV in the United States might cost $300 or $400 or $500 a month. Okay. Our pharmaceutical industry sells those same drugs for like $3 a month into Africa. So and I promise they're not losing money doing that. They're not just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. But why is it $300 or $400 for an American to get treatment and only $3 to $5 a month to treat someone in a marginalized country? Mm-hmm. And it's really a tax. It's a tax on the American consumer. And it's because but the government is paying that. So the taxpayers are paying it indirectly. And so it's a really, the pharmaceutical business is a quagmire of issues.
It is.
And we could do a 3-hour show on that.
Absolutely. Hold that thought for a second. Guys, we are broadcasting live here at Men's Health in Mississippi. If you're just tuning in, would love for you to swing by. No appointment needed today. No appointment needed today for a complimentary testosterone screening. Stop in. They're going to take your blood. They'll get back with you here in the next day or so, however long it takes to do a quick turnaround on the drug test, on the blood test, the blood work, and they'll let you know what your level is and see if you are qualified, or see if you're a good candidate for testosterone therapy.
If you're not in the area and you just want to call and get scheduled for a screening, our phone number is super easy to remember. It's 1-844-4-MVP-TRT.
1-844-MVP-TRT?
Yeah, 1-844-4-MVP-TRT.
I was going to say, well, one number short there.
So if you're driving down the road, you can
4-MVP-TRT.
give a call to that number, and my staff will get in touch with you and get you on the schedule for your free screening.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. Like I said, we understand everybody can't stop what they're doing and come in just because we're here. But we are located at 120 Fountains Boulevard in Madison. It's right over here off Highland Colony or 463, depending on which road you pull in. That is 463 right there.
Yep,
So,
Main
yeah.
Street 463.
Well, yeah. So you get off at the Madison exit. If you're coming north from Jackson, get off at the Madison exit, come left back across the interstate, and you'll come through the main red lights and all that, and you're going to take the left. If you go through Highland Colony, cross over Highland Colony, you're going to take the first left, I believe it is,
Yeah.
or second left, something like that. You'll see it. It's
just
Fountains Boulevard.
Super easy. Just get on Google Maps and or Waze and plug in Men's Health of Mississippi. I'll bring you right here.
It will. It'll bring you right. It's the first thing that pops up if you type it. So in Google, Men's Health in Mississippi. And I'll be here till 2, chopping it up with Dr. Micah Walker here. And look, Micah, we've obviously on my platform exhausted the importance of testosterone.
Yeah.
And getting it right. And I tell people, like, this is beyond an advertising partnership. This is something I feel called to do, is to express to men the importance of getting their testosterone levels checked. But point being, y'all offer so much more than that.
Yeah.
You're also my general physician, and when I don't feel good, y'all also hear from me. And
Yeah.
that's been with a 12-year-old living back in the house, going to school and being around a bunch of kids, just a petri dish of viruses. Y'all have been hearing from me more and more lately.
Yeah.
You almost heard from me today, postponing this if I hadn't started feeling better. But I was like, no, worst case scenario, I show up and and they give me some shots and I start feeling better.
Yeah.
And luckily I turned the corner on the way here.
I mean, let's just use you as an example, Clay. I mean, I've watched you. You know, you were a patient before we
Absolutely.
ever advertised with you. You know, and then we met through that process. And
Firm believer in what y'all do. And it makes promoting it so much easier when you firmly believe in it.
I've watched your kind of transformation over the past couple of years. You know, and so how old are you, Clay?
40, I'll be 48 in August.
Yes, I'm 46. So we're, and so before us, like, who was your primary care physician?
I didn't really have one.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a guy, but it was just one at a minor med type place. I mean, I like him, great guy,
no.
nothing negative at all.
I mean, that's kind of
COVID.
the male experience with healthcare is, you got an attorney, you got somebody you call if you need some legal advice. You know, you've got a CPA, you've got people, you got an insurance guy, but you're 45 years old and you don't really have someone that's helping you manage your most important asset in your life, which is actually your health.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so that was actually what we built this clinic for. And yeah, we do a good bit of testosterone replacement, but our primary thing that we provide primary care for men. Okay, and we provide it in a way that works with their busy life. You know, these are guys that guys go to the doctor when they have a problem. Okay, and so for their 20s and 30s, they don't have a lot going on except if they get sick and they need to get back to work, they need a doctor's excuse or they need to feel better so they can get back to work. That's why they go consume medical care. Otherwise, guys do not go to the doctor. They're busy. They're otherwise healthy, versus like women, they have a relationship with a physician, that from the time they're 15, and all through their life. But men, and a previous generation of men, they didn't go to the doctor until they had a heart attack. Like my dad had not been to the doctor for like 30 years. He didn't go for stitches. He'd just tape it up and move on. But my dad didn't go to the doctor until he had a heart attack. I was 14 years old. He was 53 years old. And that's the first time he'd been to the doctor since he was a kid.
I don't want to mention his name, but one of my best friends was pulling up as I pulled up, and he came in here and did his blood work.
Yeah.
And all, he's been here. He's a patient.
Yeah.
And he would not come to the doctor. Like, it was a thing. I could never get him to go to the doctor anytime he felt bad or anything. And this has changed his whole relationship with his health and coming to a doctor and everything.
Number one, I mean, you come in, it's a male-centric space. It's this clinic's designed for men. You come in, it feels comfortable.
Kind of like the sport clips for your health.
Now they give bad haircuts, man. I don't want to compare myself to sport clips.
I know. I couldn't think of a better analogy that the people would wrap their heads around.
Now there are some other clinics out there that are approaching sport clips. We're not in a strip mall.
Well, I was just getting at it's once you're inside, it's inviting to the male psyche.
But you come in, you feel comfortable. We have a place to sit, but it's not a waiting room. We call it a reception area because you shouldn't have to sit very long. You're here, somebody's welcoming you when you walk in. Yeah, we got deer heads on the wall, little cousin Eddie. Got the leg lamp over there. Everybody likes the leg lamp.
It's
And you know, but it's a welcoming environment. You know, for men, you come in, you got a place that you can talk about your problems. You know, and you know, otherwise you're going to an urgent care. You're sitting in a room full of sick people. You know, you're trying to stay healthy. Why would you go sit in a room full of sick people to stay healthy?
I talk about that all the time. You know what's funny is I don't think I've ever been in here with another sick person. It's that like I say, occasionally I don't feel good. I'll come in and get the trifecta of sinus infection shots, or maybe it's 2 shots. I guess a Decatron and Rocephin, whatever. Everybody's different. But come in and get that, and you know, prescription to whatever. But it's simple, stupid, and it just works.
Yeah, and I mean the other side of it, you know,
And in and out in 5 minutes. So if you never have to wait long here.
right? Yeah, and so we have it set up that way. But it's number one. I mean, guys are busy, man. I mean, most of our, you know, our average patient, you know, owns their own business. You know, they're hustling, like they're, you know, they're our age. They're trying to take care of their family, their finances, and they don't have time to be sick. And they don't have time to sit around waiting for 3 hours to see the doctor.
You know, that's the other thing about being a guy too, right? Is we think we're always in a rush, and usually we are, but we just refuse to make time for the most important things because we're chasing whatever we've deemed, whether it's money, whatever. We just always put everything else in front of our health until it's too late usually.
Yeah.
Because I can't go wait, I'm in a rush, blah, blah, blah. And this just eliminates all of that. Like everything you think you know about a doctor's office has been completely reimagined here. And it's just not that. You're not in white coats and you're not running around with a stethoscope on, and you know, it's just not big clipboards. Just you're not. They don't have the patient, the folder racks on the outside of the doors, and just all of that stuff. And it's just the little rooms aren't set up like that. It's just very inviting and relaxing, and it takes your mind off of whatever stress you may have had worrying about your health when you got here. Like, you know, you're prepared for bad news. Like, you just don't, that vibe's not here.
You know, it's thinking of an analogy I often use with people. It's like, you know, most of our patients, they appreciate us because they have a relationship with us that's similar to like they're a CPA. You know, like, you know, most of us, we get to a point in life, like life's too complicated to go to Jackson Hewitt or H&R Block to get your taxes done. Okay. This is medical care for that kind of guy, like somebody who appreciates somebody that understands their whole situation, you know, that they have access to. When they call on the phone, you know, make a phone call, you get an answer, okay? Versus, we'll take a message and I'll be back with you in the next 6 days, okay? That's traditional medical care, you know. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people say, well, I need to. Will you take my insurance? Now, I would love to take people's insurance, but it will not pay for me to take care of them the way they deserve. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of hard to articulate, but once people experience it, they wouldn't do it any other way. You know, we have a lot of patients that are with us and come in that don't have insurance, and they use us because they don't have insurance, and they get it, and they may try to use their insurance for a few months, and they almost always come back, and they give us the same story. They're like, man, I can't do it any other way because it's too frustrating to do it that way. I
did a phone interview with our 10 to noon host at the radio station at WYAB promoting this on his show that I was going to be here, and I try not to get into the finance side of this. I'll let y'all do that, but I was trying to kind of explain to people, and I'm not giving medical advice or financial advice, but this is just how it works for Clay, is I was able to just get an emergency room type medical insurance that will cover me if I go to the emergency room. And I'm able to save money like that by, instead of having some big crazy package with like this zero copay for doctor visits and all this other stuff that costs an arm and a leg, and then do the membership thing here to offset that. And for me, it's been the most financially feasible thing. And again, I can't speak for everybody else. I don't know your insurance or financial situation. But if you're self-employed, like I am, 1099 employee, whatever, you need good emergency room availability insurance that's not going to bankrupt you if you have to go to the emergency room. But you need also to be able to afford to go to the doctor if you get sick, whether the sinus infection, the flu, COVID, whatever, just general physician type stuff. And with this monthly membership here, no contract, you can cancel at any time. This has been the most absolute feasible thing for me. You don't mark up the shots to some, $100 a piece type stuff. I guess everything's
Yeah.
different. I always go back to what I use. It's very affordable, and I'm not going to break myself coming to take care of myself.
No, I mean, we make our money off the membership, and the other things that we do are pretty much at cost, labs, things like that. It's worked very well for us. It's worked very well for a lot of patients. I mean, over the course, we've been doing this. I opened our first clinic in 2017. We saw our first patients, I think, January 5th of 2017. And, over the course of that time, we have about 2,000 patients that use us, and a lot of those patients have health insurance. But the thing is, most people's health insurance is high deductible, and even with insurance, like you go use your insurance for labs or things like that, and even after your insurance pays, you owe $300, and you have no clue you're going to owe that. It's a surprise. It's like, whoa, where'd this come from? Well, here there's no surprises. Anything we do here, we can tell you exactly how much it costs, and I think that people appreciate that. They understand it's we have to make a living, we have to pay overhead, but I always tell people, our membership's $150 a month. I think the average cell phone bill's up over $110, $120 a month now for unlimited access. Well, it's $150 a month for unlimited access to your medical care. Okay, that's not cheap, but it's not expensive. It's very reasonable. It's very affordable, and then the level of access that you get, it's like, you can ask Sean this. I mean, he's an attorney. Would you go on retainer with unlimited access to you for legal services for $150 a month?
No, there's some prepaid legal services that do it, but I don't know how much to trust those.
Yeah, but to have a relationship,
Oh, yeah.
I have a retainer relationship with my attorney, but it's 10 times what my membership is.
Sure.
And I checked what MC Law School cost, and my medical degree was more expensive.
Yeah.
So I think we got a very fairly priced product. We provide, I think, incredible access and incredible level of service to our patients. We always focus on the testosterone thing because that's men 35 to 70 are dealing with that issue, a lot of them. But the reality is, I take care of diabetes, prediabetes, hypertension. We manage people's prostate health. If they need a referral to a urologist, we make sure those things get handled. We do workups for sleep apnea and referrals for sleep studies. We do everything. Like, we're kind of like your old school country doc.
Mm-hmm. And that's the vibe you get when you come out here.
In big city Madison, so we provide and take care of like 90% of the things that people need on a routine basis.
Speaking of sleep apnea,
yeah,
my girlfriend is convinced that I have sleep apnea. I'm not, apparently I'm snoring more than I ever have.
Yeah.
Does that necessarily tied to sleep? Is snoring directly tied to sleep apnea?
Snoring's a symptom of it, but the apnea is really like when you stop breathing.
So I don't feel like I'm stopped breathing. I don't wake up gagging or anything like that.
She'll know better than you do.
That's what she said. She filmed it and said she would show it to me.
Talking about sleep apnea, things. So if you're a truck driver and your neck's over 16.5 inches in diameter, so based on your shirt size, when you go to Great Scott and get a new dress shirt, if you wear a 17, then you've got to have a sleep study to get your CDL to drive a truck.
Really?
Yeah, like that's
you got a big neck.
Yeah, I wear a 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what mine is. My dad
my
dad has a really small esophagus, and we begged him for years to get it, stretched or whatever, because he chokes easily. But that just made me think about that.
Now my neck, if I didn't have ears, my neck's wider than my head.
my stride is longer than my legs.
Oh,
apparently
really?
That's a rare. It's not the most common thing to have a longer torso. I said stride. I mean my torso.
Oh, your torso. Yeah.
It's longer than my legs.
Yeah, I'm built like that too.
So it's kind of weird. Buying jeans, I have to go try them on. I don't know how I jumped down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of my dad, real quick, and testosterone. So his doctor prescribed him. I'm always trying to push everybody here and to my pharmacy. I love Brandon Discount Drugs. I'm like just the hometown drugstore.
Yeah.
I love that. I try to support everything local that I can. And so anyway, my dad's got a doctor, and he's 75 or 6, and he finally put him on testosterone.
Yeah.
And he was coming out here to get it. Well, he was getting it one way or another.
Yeah.
Well, by hook or by crook, I was putting my dad on testosterone. Anyway, I joke. But I think he's about 2 weeks in now, and he's so excited. And I'm more excited for him than he is for himself. But I use him as my example here. I think a lot of people may think they're seniors. Is it safe for them to get on testosterone? Is it going to affect them negatively? And I've had not negatively, but I guess negatively. Is it safe for their blood pressure, their blood work, for them to get on testosterone at an older age? And I've had guys call into my show that aren't my dad, that are in their 70s and gotten on it, and it's been a game changer for every aspect of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the main contraindications to testosterone therapy are like severe untreated sleep apnea, history of prostate cancer, okay, and then polycythemia, which
What is that?
That's a $50 medical word for you have thick blood. So so if you've got too many more red blood cells,
That is kind of a thing that I'm supposed to go get my blood done, pulled donate blood more often than I do.
The polycythemia can be related to sleep apnea, smoking, living at a high elevation, being Lance Armstrong and taking
HGH and stuff.
Well, he took erythropoietin to increase the number of red blood cells, so his blood had more oxygen.
What's the abbreviated word for that?
EPO.
EPO. Okay.
EPO. Yeah.
EPO. That's it.
Yeah, and so instead of because if you go out west, you go to like Reno, Nevada, which is almost a mile elevation and a little bit more temperate climate than Denver. A lot of those Tour de France, super hyper, incredible athlete bicyclists,
endurance stuff.
They actually live at those places because living at that elevation causes your red blood cell count to be higher because the oxygen content's lower.
Now, I have obviously being from Jackson in this area, I have a lot of black friends that I've grown up with, and they have something that is really just kind of specific to them, where a lot of them can't be in high altitude areas. What is that called?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a name for it. Anyway, you mentioned the high altitude areas. Like I had friends that have moved to high altitude places, had to come back because it literally, like NFL players. There's certain ones that can't go play like in Denver.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I can't remember the name of that off the top of my head. It's something that's very specific.
Anybody can get altitude sickness, but I mean, there are, I can think of a couple of different medical conditions that are, might contribute to that, like sickle cell anemia.
That's it, sickle cell.
Or sickle cell trait, or things like that might impact somebody's oxygen carrying capacity in their blood that are more, like there's certain things in the world that are more prevalent in certain areas.
Mm-hmm. And is sickle cell, is that something that's more prevalent to African Americans than it is white people? Because I've heard more African Americans talk about it, and I didn't mean to jump down this rabbit hole with you, but we were talking about these breathing stuff, and it is something that I think does impact a lot of people in our area.
Yeah, I mean, sickle cell anemia in the African American population is it's almost non-existent in the Caucasian.
That's kind of what I was getting at, yeah.
But other things like, what is it? Hemophilia. Okay, hemophilia is almost a completely Northern European phenomenon.
And what is that?
Okay,
I've heard of what is that?
That's kids that their blood doesn't clot, so they bleed to death if they don't have clotting factors. So
hemo is only blood, right?
Yeah.
Blood related.
And so but and the reason being, like, for whatever reason, the sickle cell trait provides some protective benefit from malaria. And so if you're in sub-Saharan Africa and malaria kills a lot of people and it doesn't kill the people that have sickle cell trait, then more sickle cell trait exists. And then eventually 2 people with sickle cell trait have a child, and that child ends up with 2 copies of the sickle cell, so they don't have sickle cell trait anymore. They have sickle cell anemia.
Interesting.
And that's a very, very challenging medical condition for those people.
So I've just seen it come up with players, football athletes in general, especially outdoor football players. I think sometimes they can't go to like Denver.
I think several years ago they started screening for it in college players because they were having some issues with with players that had sickle cell trait, or they had what they call SC, which is another type of. So they had two different blood conditions that together were dangerous.
Interesting. Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've always heard about that, and you mentioned the higher altitudes, and it just made me think about it. Circling back, I said I was going to move on from testosterone, but it's just such an interesting topic for me. And I know we always focus on like 35 and up kind of guys, but with younger people, especially men, are ended up with really low testosterone nowadays due to diet at the end of the day, and just so much stuff, conditions out there that are causing people to have at younger and younger ages to have lower and lower testosterone. Let's just say, for example, somebody 25 comes in and they have low testosterone. I guess it's a patient to patient basis, obviously. But do you recommend people like that are dealing with it at a young age maybe try to more natural ways to get their body to kickstart making testosterone versus jumping straight to a replacement?
It's one thing we do. So you check somebody's testosterone level and it's low. Okay, so why is it low? Okay, that's important to know. Okay, because they have symptoms, they have low testosterone. You don't just start treating it until you know why it's low. Okay, so that's, you come in, you get your free testosterone screening, or you come in and you get your full set of labs to start with. And part of the part of the workup is, yes, your testosterone's low and you have symptoms, but we got to make sure that we know why. Okay, so there's a bunch of different things that are medical that could cause low testosterone, okay, that need to be treated. Sleep apnea can cause low testosterone, okay? Having a BMI of 40, being fat can cause low testosterone. Smoking too much medical marijuana can cause low testosterone.
Being too much cardio, right? Running is really bad on cardio, on testosterone?
One thing, not sleeping, okay? Because your body makes its peak testosterone levels at night while you're sleeping. Okay, that's when the brain's telling, the pituitary is telling the testicles to make testosterone. Okay, so if you have anything disrupting that, if you have a pituitary tumor, that can make your testosterone low. Okay, we treat a lot of people. We've had a couple of patients over the years who came in, their testosterone was low. We found a pituitary tumor. Okay, now they need to see a neurosurgeon. Okay, now one of the problems, and we're very, very adamant about making sure that you don't just treat a level. You need to understand why it's low. Is it low because of age and other factors that are outside of your control, or is it low because there's a medical problem?
And the blood work will show.
The blood work
will have other signs
right.
beyond just low level. It'll say,
so,
A, then B, then C.
Yeah. And a lot of guys have low testosterone because they played around with something when they were in their 20s in college or whatever in the gym, and they took some substances that they got from a gym bro. Bro science. And they were, and they weren't doing things safely, and they've created a situation where now they've kind of done some permanent damage to their own endocrine system, and their testosterone's low in their 30s because of what they did in their 20s. Okay, now, if there's not another underlying medical issue with that, then you treat them because you want their testosterone levels in the normal range. We're not trying to do Arnold Schwarzenegger here.
No.
We don't bodybuild. That's not what we're accomplishing here. Our goal is to improve your overall quality of life, improve your overall health. There's one of the things that really came out in the past 10 years that was really kind of eye-opening, I think, for a lot in the medical profession and people, is that men with low testosterone actually have a higher risk of stroke and heart attack than men with normal levels. Okay? So as a primary care doctor who treats hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease, who's trying to keep people healthy, why wouldn't we consider a man's testosterone level in terms of his overall wellness for his long-term health up into his 70s and 80s? That's where it kind of comes back to where you're talking about, older gentlemen in their 70s, testosterone is super low. Well, man, the guys that I know a lot of guys in their 70s are probably in better shape than me, and they got a 10-year life expectancy, pretty high likelihood of living another 10 years.
Did you see the video of Rick Springfield at Brandon Amphitheater the other day?
No, I didn't.
And I just bring it up because you mentioned guys in their 70s.
Yeah.
He's in his 70s, up on stage, jacked, ripped up six
Yeah.
pack. And I'm like, it was one of those wake up calls.
Yeah.
It really was. I'm like, Clay, no excuse.
Yeah.
He's got 30 years on you.
Yeah, but man, testosterone replacement is probably not going to make you ripped at 70.
No,
Probably
but just
probably
take care of yourself.
Like Stallone, Stallone probably needs way higher doses than what we do to maintain his physique.
That made me think about this, and I wanted to ask you this because this is
Yeah.
something I don't necessarily have a really good understanding of, and I've had a lot of people ask me. Explain peptides. Is testosterone a peptide?
No.
What is a peptide versus testosterone or versus an anabolic steroid, or what is a peptide?
So, just from a basic standpoint, a peptide is a protein.
Okay.
Okay, it is a string of amino acids. Okay, makes up a peptide. So a protein's a peptide.
There's like a lot of designer peptides now that are like injectable, needle-based, needle-given peptides. I see it all on YouTube.
You get on Facebook or any men's sites or things like that, and there's all of this bro science around peptides.
Yes.
Okay. Well, bro, I mean, if they say it on the internet, it must be true, right?
Bonjour.
No, it's not. I mean, my job is to keep people safe. So what I don't do is I don't claim to know things that I don't know. Okay, and so I can say this. I mean, the peptides. We have a lot of patients ask us about them. The things that I'm seeing, I wouldn't. They're research type chemicals, okay. And we just talked about the pharmaceutical industry earlier. Like, if the pharmaceutical industry has not taken these molecules and figured out how to monetize them, there must be something wrong. Okay, that's just my, just gut opinion on it. It's like, if the pharmaceutical industry has not figured out how to take something, like, because there's a
monetize it.
There's a peptide out there called melanotan. Okay, and you can give yourself an injection and you will get tan. It will make you brown.
I know several people who have overdone that.
Yeah,
and they look.
And so back
leather.
when I was in medical school, there was a young girl in town who was in her early 20s, and she was using melanotan prepping for a bodybuilding competition. And for whatever reason, the melanotan, she had a reaction to it, and she ended up in the hospital in the ICU because her body's response to that medicine or whatever was in it from where it was processed or whatever else, like basically 80% of the skin on her body like boiled off, like blistered. Oof. And so she was a burn patient basically because she had a immune reaction to that peptide, okay, that she got from somebody at the gym to prep for her bodybuilding competition. She's probably, I don't know the young lady, but she's probably permanently disfigured. Because, it was like third-degree burns on 80% of her body. Okay. Number one, it was not a safe medication, and it did not come from a safe source. Okay, so my obligation as a physician is to only provide safe, efficacious, meaning safe medicines that work. Okay, so when it comes to all these peptides and things, there's so much, there's an industry out there monetizing people's desire for the fountain of youth. Okay, so my just general gut, and things may change, there may be better data, but right now, I think a lot of these peptides are they may work, but it's kind of snake oil. Like, you don't know what negatives it causes, because the difference in poison and medicine is the dose, right? And so nobody knows what it does. I'm going to speak to a specific issue that I know a bunch of these high school athletes and stuff. They're using these things called SARMs, like Ostarine. You can get on websites and order these things from research chemical companies, and they're designer steroids. And these high school kids are using them. And then those are the 25-year-olds we see come in with low testosterone and they can't get their wife pregnant because their fertility's shot, because they've used these research chemicals. Nobody knows if they cause cancer or not, because people are testing themselves like lab rats. based on something they read off the internet. So I'm very cautious. We do things in our clinic that are safe, effective, that are, that have a long history, that are FDA approved, and we've really stayed away from the peptide side of things because somebody's going to get hurt, and then there's no pharmaceutical company to go back on because you just got it from some company on the internet that has a disclaimer on their website that says it's a research chemical, and by the time the FDA gets to them, all those guys took the money and they're in Panama. And that's the way that business works. So there's a ton of interest around it. People want to talk about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I know people that use them, but I would never personally, I can't, as a professional, as a physician, I can't recommend something that I don't know to be safe. So we kind of live on this concept of primum non nocere, right? First do no harm. That's the Latin for first do no harm.
Yeah.
So if I don't know it won't hurt you, I can't recommend it. And there's things we do. I mean, we're in medicine. I cut moles and stuff off. Like I cause harm,
Sure.
but the benefit outweighs the harm.
Yeah.
But if I don't know what the harm is, then I can't weigh the benefits.
I get it, man. Like I say,
harm.
as I've been going on this fitness journey and, just trying to learn more about it and health and all these things, I should have been in airplane mode, all these other things, you come across this stuff and it does pique your interest and just trying to learn what it is. And I just wasn't sure, was it like a HGH, growth hormone? Was that considered a peptide? I guess wasn't just sure what a peptide was.
There's a medication called Semaglutide.
And they're advertising like little what look like steroid bottles. Yeah. And on all the ads that I see pop up on, it's like, oh, it looks like an anabolic type. Oh, that can make me bigger. What is this?
Semaglutide is a peptide, but it's available as a commercially available medication. It's been FDA approved for treatment of growth hormone deficiency. It's primarily used to treat children that if they don't get growth hormone stimulation, they will be little people.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so like they're going to, they won't grow to their potential because they have a pituitary disorder.
I was going to ask, isn't that usually a pituitary deal?
Their body doesn't generate enough growth hormone.
But also it's the same thing that helps turn people into like Andre the Giant too, right?
Well, that's gigantism, right? And so.
But it's a pituitary issue too, right?
It is. Their pituitary is secreting too much growth hormone. Yeah. So you can secrete not enough or secrete too much. Andre the Giant, Jaws from James Bond. Mm-hmm. Remember the guy with the metal teeth, the villain?
Like I did when you said James Bond, I knew who you were talking about. Yeah.
And so and that's kind of if you look at bodybuilders like these professional guys, Mr. Olympia and stuff like Dorian Yates and like this new generation, like these bodybuilders over the past 20 years, and you compare them to like Lou Ferrigno and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like those old school guys had great physiques, but they had like a narrow waist. They had this X figure.
V.
And they used substances. I mean, they used testosterone and they used some oral anabolics to get that way, but they didn't have growth hormone. Okay, and then this current generation of professional bodybuilders, they use a lot of growth hormone in addition to everything else. I mean, they're using it's insane. The stuff they're using is stuff that they give cows to maximize muscle before they take them to slaughter. Okay. Well, all these new bodybuilders, they die about 50. Yeah. They don't make it long.
I can't remember the more famous guy's name that died recently.
Yeah.
But just super jacked,
Yeah.
And,
Ronnie Coleman.
White guy. He had a whole clothing company, supplement company, and everything. And I just can't remember his name.
But you see these guys now, when you look at them, they're real square. Their guts are real big. Like if they're not flexing their abs, their guts poking out.
It literally looks like a keg.
And the reason is they use like $20,000-$30,000 a month worth of growth hormone.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, and the thing is, the growth hormone makes, so if you remember, like hands grow, jaws grow. internal organs grow. The growth hormone makes everything
Everything.
grow.
Your heart.
And the reason
everything.
their belly's so fat and big and square is not that there's fat in there. It's like their liver, all their organs are bigger than normal because the growth hormone's constantly stimulating that growth.
And they never ungrow, right?
And
Once
there's
you
nothing,
grow, it's
yeah, there's nothing healthy about that. Like that,
Right.
those people don't live long, you know. And so, you know, going out and most of what we know about a lot of these substances are coming from those kind of people that are abusing them. And so it's kind of, you know, there's healthy ways to live a better, healthier life. You know,
doing a shot of HGH every day, ain't it?
No, no.
No. I mean, like I said, I
Like,
watched the
actually,
documentary
and
on the guy that died that I'm talking about. I just
Yeah.
can't believe I can't remember his name. But
HGH is one of the few, like, medications that's not a controlled substance that's illegal to prescribe. Unless, yeah. I mean, the only people that can get it are for, like, if they have growth hormone deficiency or they have AIDS, HIV-related wasting. And so it's really, like, and this happened back in the 90s. There were all these online, you know, testosterone clinics out of Florida that were shipping and selling HGH all over the country for thousands a month. And then
it's always Florida. That's
Yeah,
kind of what
it's
kickstarted the opioid epidemic too. The pill
Yeah.
mills down there.
so,
That people going from Kentucky back down there anyway.
but just to sum it up, like, you know, peptides, you know, there's a lot of information out there on them. If you go look at actual medical literature and research and things like that, there is none. As far as I'm aware, most of the peptides that are being marketed on the internet are actually on the FDA's list that are not to be compounded by legitimate compounding pharmacies. And so I think people are much safer, like, waiting, sitting back and seeing what happens with that rather than just participating in it. Because, like, otherwise you're being a guinea pig. Mm-hmm. And, like, in my practice, I can't use experimental substances on people and will not. You know, that's not the right thing to do. And but, you know, there's people out there marketing, there's people out there that are professionals, and I just think they don't know any better. I don't know why. You know, I think someone needs to talk to them and help them understand why it's a bad idea to promote this stuff.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you today
Yeah.
and kind of jump down these rabbit holes is because I know I have a lot of people that
Yeah.
listen, and these are questions I get asked
Yeah.
by people because they think they know me as the testosterone. You know, I'm so attached to the testosterone
Yeah.
stuff. You know, that they ask me about all these things, and I'm like, man, I honestly don't know because I don't study the things I'm not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know, but there are a lot of people out there, and there are a lot of people getting bad information out there, and you may not be able to speak on this. I 100% understand. So this is just me saying this. I'm not speaking for Dr. Walker here. It's unfortunate what happened through COVID and the medical industry because so many people have lost a lot of trust in it through COVID that now when you have a conversation like this, or it opens the door for these other companies, these peptide companies and stuff to come in and say, wow, what the FDA doesn't want you to do, what doctors don't want you to know. And people are just become more sus to believe stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I mean it's a sad situation. I mean with my profession, you know, like we just had a conversation here that I would have with any of my patients if they asked me about peptides. Like I'm not going to shame somebody for
Well, I am a patient.
you know, I'm not gonna shame somebody for wanting to try something, but like I can't endorse that, and I can't prescribe that, and I can't recommend that. And it's my job though to make sure you understand what the potential negatives of it are, because I mean, I'm supposed to be your advisor in health. I'm supposed to be here to help you manage your health and help you live your healthiest life. And so part of that though is having access to somebody that when you do have a new supplement or something like that, we field those questions all the time. And when we talk honestly with patients, like, man, I don't know anything about that, but except that, number one, if I wanted to prescribe it to you, there's not a place I could get it from that I would trust.
Yeah.
Number two, like it has had no real research done on it to show that it works, you know, so take that as you will. You know, I would advise you to be cautious with that. You know, you go back to COVID, I worked in an emergency room and I had to take 2 COVID vaccines. So I had to have 2 doses of the Moderna. Was I happy about it? No, but I had to feed my family. And if I didn't take the vaccines, I didn't have a job.
And unfortunately, that's the position so many people found
Yeah.
themselves in.
And so now, I mean, one of the reasons I'm self-employed, I don't have a corporation telling me, what I have to put in my body to keep my job. Okay. Now, my wife and kids, none of them got vaccinated. My 80-year-old parents, I felt like it was probably a good idea for them to get vaccinated, but otherwise healthy people, but we have parents that in my other practice in UKRMD where I take care of children, and, we have parents that, they're not on board with vaccinating their kids. That's fine. That's their decision. Mm-hmm. This is America. And I'm a libertarian.
Yeah.
Those parents should have the right to make the decisions about what goes in their children's bodies.
Yep.
Okay. And now it's my job to educate them, make them understand the risk and everything else, not to scare them into getting their kids vaccinated, but measles is a real thing. The reason we don't see it is because everybody's vaccinated. Polio is a real thing. My parents are 85. They lost friends and stuff to polio. And we don't see it because vaccines have eradicated that. Now, should kids get 10 vaccines at one visit at their pediatrician? Is that overloading their system? Probably so. I don't really, it's kind of crazy that, I took one of my kids in, they stuck them 7 times. And I was like, man, and I'm in the business. I was kind of like, this is kind of crazy. But they get paid one time to administer the vaccine, so they got all these to do, so they do it at one visit because they don't get paid if you come back a second time.
Right.
And that's the government, kind of dictating how things go.
Well, they've put so many on the childhood vaccine list. It's just insane. I'm glad seeing somebody taking a look at that. Robert Kennedy Jr. taking a look at that and getting COVID off the childhood vaccine list and the COVID vaccine off the list. So it's good. It's good. Parental choice is really, really good when it comes to their children's health options and their choices when it comes to that. And it's good to know that you give those parents those choices here. So look, people know all about men's health, and we're running out of time here. Yeah. But look, y'all are so much more than just the men's health. You mentioned New Care. There's also the women's clinic upstairs.
Yeah. So we got Women's Wellness in Mississippi, and so what? It's kind of cool how it started. I had a patient that I was managing. I was managing her hormone therapy, and her husband was a patient in the men's clinic, and she came in one day to see me, and she'd been up here with her husband, and she was like, "What? Like, I'm pissed. Like, you got a clinic for my husband, but you don't have a clinic just for me." And I was like, "Huh, okay. Well," so that started up. We were like, "Okay, we've got space in the building. What if we do a women's clinic?" And it's really the same concept as men's health. It's primary care for women. Really for, from 30 to 65, is our primary market. Okay. So women, most of our patients, they're done having babies, and they kind of, our ladies are looking to get themselves back. Mm-hmm. Their kids are getting a little older. Maybe all their kids are in school now. They're getting a little time to go to the gym, and they're looking to get themselves back, because they're starting to have a little time to spend on themselves. So our women's clinic, we do concierge primary care for women, so we do annual wellness exams, pap smears, anything any women's clinic would do. We don't deliver babies. We don't manage pregnancy. But otherwise, if it's a health issue and women have it, we handle it. Okay, I've got a nurse practitioner, Kim Davis, who is my primary NP in the women's clinic. We do weight loss. We do aesthetics. I do injectables. So we do a lot of tox, so neuromodulators, Botox, Jeuveau, Daxxify. We do fillers, so lip filler, cheek filler, nasolabial folds, common areas that people want to address aging. Do some other procedures that are kind of, targeted towards, they're kind of non-invasive cosmetic procedures for the face, laser hair removal, laser acne treatments. We have a phenomenal skincare line called Zeos Skin Health, and it is a really incredible product line that, it's skincare, medical grade skincare for just about anybody, men, women, you know, of course, women consume more skincare, but we added that line last year, and it's been a phenomenal, like we have seen transformations in people's skin. Like, you know, 'cause most women don't want to wear a lot of makeup. You know, they like for their skin to be glowing
breathe
without it.
Like to me, it just feels like it clogs up the pores, and it can't be wearing makeup every day can't be good.
And then we, you know, upstairs we have a device called the M Sculpt Neo that pretty cool.
I've done it.
You can get abs.
Yep.
You know,
I think I'm gonna be doing it again here soon.
and then we have another device called the M-Cella that's for women that deals specifically with like stress incontinence. So a lot of women after childbirth and into their 30s, they start dealing with, you know, if they sneeze or cough or laugh too hard, you know, they may.
You told me about that.
Yeah.
And you guys have a machine for that.
And so it's that one option is like pelvic floor physical therapy, which is a bit more invasive, but the M-Cella is you sit on it fully clothed, and it helps strengthen the pelvic floor muscle. So it's like, I think it's like 11,200 Kegels in 28 minutes. And so 95% of women that do a series of treatment with that will see a significant improvement in their stress incontinence.
The M Sculpt, how many setups is that? Like 10,000 setups in 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, it's like 20,000 sit-ups and crunches in 30 minutes.
And you know, when you get done, you know you did it, but it's not that pain. You don't regret it the next day.
Then, you know, you go to the gym and you overwork something, and it's kind of this, you're pushing hard, it's this anaerobic activity, you have that lactic acid buildup, and what, you know, gym bros it's called delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, you know, and you can't walk upstairs for 3 days. You don't have that experience with the M-Sculpt because it actually, as it's contracting the muscle, it goes through a process of removing the lactic acid from the muscle. But like it makes the muscle contract in a way that helps it move the lactic acid out, so it's not building up to create that soreness. So you get like a maximal workout with minimal downtime.
Yeah, the stuff is neat. Dr. Micah Walker here at Men's Health Mississippi, Women's Wellness Mississippi, and New Care. They got you covered from all your general physician needs. Of course, weight loss with the compounded semaglutides, and men, of course, your testosterone that we've talked so much about. They pretty much do it all here.
Yeah.
It's a monthly membership. You can cancel at any time. I highly, highly recommend coming by, taking advantage of the complimentary testosterone screening, and just going from there. And, you know, taking a look at it, getting a feel for the place, talking to the folks. And I'd be shocked if you leave and without signing up. And I said, no commitment. Just swing by, say, hey, check it out. Take advantage of the free testosterone screening. So many have that follow the show and listen to us and listen to WYAB. I appreciate everybody that's done that and been out and supported it. And like I said, it's just something that has become my hill to die on, is getting men to go check their testosterone levels. It's just, you know, it's like somebody who gets, you always hear guys who have dealt with rectal colon cancer, rectal cancer. Yeah. Like, well, get screened. That's how I feel about testosterone. Get screened. Worst you find out is you don't need it.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably not the worst you can find out. You can find out you have it and it's due to something worse. But let's be positive here.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you want to, if you got a problem, you want to know about it.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. You got to be honest. I was talking to my mechanic yesterday about something on my truck.
Yeah.
And I said, I got to be honest. I got on it kind of hard.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I wasn't going to ask. I said, well, I tell my doctor everything because I want to be diagnosed properly. I said, I look at my vehicles the same way. If I want it diagnosed properly.
Yeah.
Because you got to know what I did.
Yeah.
To know exactly what could be wrong, and our health is the same way.
Yeah.
You're not going to lie to your mechanic. Don't lie to your doctor. You know, don't tell them what's wrong and come back here and find out.
You know, your doctor's office is a no judgment zone.
Absolutely.
You know, when that door closes and we start talking, it's like I've heard everything. You can talk to me about anything. You're not going to surprise me.
Look, guys, something else. You know, we kind of started the show out here, you know, kind of joshing around a little bit, talking about some of the alleged positive side effects of Ozempic for men. You know, one of the other things that you can get here is in a closed door. They do prescribe the blue pills.
Oh,
You know, it's an easy conversation to have, and get it sent over to your pharmacy, pick them up, and easy breezy.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, the cost should not be anyone's concern. I think generic Viagra is probably less than $20 for a 3-month supply.
It's gotten cheap, and
same way with tadalafil, the Cialis.
I know a guy that, likes the 100 milligram ones, gets a month's supply for about $20,
Yeah.
the big ones that you can break in half and
It's kind of
whatever else.
I look online, I see what people are paying on hymns and stuff, and it's like blows my mind. People are still paying that, and it's generic. They're
$100
just
a
making
month for like
they're
5
making
milligram
a killing
pills.
off of that. Well, I mean,
Real low
we just
dose.
send a script in the pharmacy. It's probably, I mean, honestly, it's like $15 to $20. It's enough
cheap.
to last for 3 months.
Oh yeah. I mean, you ain't taking it every day. I mean, if
if
you
you're-
are, congratulations.
If you're
but
using 30 a month, like,
you're
you're lucky,
you're a champ.
lucky
You're in
man.
great shape. You're in great shape. All right, Micah, I appreciate you, brother. It's
a pleasure.
Enjoyed it as always. We're going to hopefully start doing these a little more often, keeping people up to date, and maybe we have some other guests and stuff. And like I said, trying to make this a regular thing and really tap off into some different topics and help people look at your health, guys.
Yeah, so if you want to get set up, go to our website. It's menshealthms.com, or you can give us a call at 844-4MVP-TRT.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.